Hello, welcome to ASL Virtual Storytime with myself, Scott, Yvonne from our North Oak branch, and Jim, our interpreter from Deaf Expression. We're going to start by saying hello. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. It's time to say hello. Thank you for singing with us.
Hi friends, I hope you enjoyed the song with Scott. Right now we're going to learn about the three billy goats gruff. Once upon a time in the land of stories, there lived three goats up on a high mountain over a green valley. There was the littlest goat, the bigger goat, and the biggest goat of all. One day, the littlest goat thought it would be a good idea to go down to the valley and eat the green grass there. Now, to get down to the green valley, they would have to cross a bridge over the river. And under the river lived a grumpy troll with horns that curled down and fangs that pointed down and a mouth that turned down in a great big frown. The bigger goat and the biggest goat of all shook their heads, but the littlest goat was determined to try. The littlest goat bounced down the mountain and tiptoed over the bridge, but the troll heard the little hoofs and came out from under roaring, "Who is that trapping over my bridge?" And the littlest goat shook in his hooves but said, "I am the littlest goat who lives on the mountain. I wanted to eat the green grass in the valley." "I will eat you up for breakfast," said the troll, showing terrible fangs that pointed down and shaking horrible horns that curled down and frowning a great big frown. "Oh, that would be such a shame," said the littlest goat, "because I was going to eat the green grass in the valley and get bigger. I would be bigger coming back over the bridge." The troll considered this. The goat really was right. "All right," said the troll. "I can wait for dinner." The littlest goat ate green grass all day and in the evening went back to the bridge. The troll was snoring underneath and the littlest goat tiptoed over the bridge on shaking hooves, then ran all the way back to the mountain. The bigger goat and the biggest goat of all listened to the story of what happened with the bridge and the troll. They agreed that the littlest goat had been very clever and very lucky. The next day, the bigger goat thought it would be a good idea to go down to the green valley and taste the grass there. The littlest goat and the biggest goat of all shook their heads. "A trick that worked once might not work again," said the littlest goat. But the bigger goat was determined to try. The bigger goat rolled down the mountain and walked over the bridge. The troll heard the bigger hoofs and came out from under roaring, "Who is that walking over my bridge?" The bigger goat looked up with yellow eyes. "I am the bigger goat who lives on the mountain. I want to eat the green grass in the valley." "I will eat you up for breakfast," said the troll, showing terrible fangs that pointed down and shaking horrible horns that curled down and frowning a great big frown. "Well, you could, but that would be a shame. I can only get bigger the more grass I eat," said the bigger goat. The troll considered this. The goat had gotten bigger after all. "I suppose I can wait until dinner," said the troll. The bigger goat ate the green grass all day and in the evening went back to the bridge. The troll was snoring underneath and the bigger goat tiptoed over the bridge on sneaky hooves, then ran all the way back up the mountain. The littlest goat and the biggest goat of all listened to the story of what happened with the bridge and the troll. They agreed that the bigger goat had been very clever and very lucky. The next day, the biggest goat of all thought it would be a good idea to go down to the green valley and taste the grass there. The littlest goat and the bigger goat shook their heads. "A trick like that worked twice, but probably won't work again," said the littlest goat. But the biggest goat of all was determined to try. And the littlest goat and the bigger goat followed along behind to see what would happen. The biggest goat of all charged down the mountain and stomped up to the bridge. The troll, who had heard the biggest hooves, came out from under, roaring, "Who is that stomp clomping over my bridge?" And the biggest goat of all stomped a big cloven hoof. "I am the biggest goat of all that lives on the mountain. I want to eat the green grass in the valley." "I will eat you up for breakfast," said the troll, showing terrible fangs that pointed down and shaking horrible horns that curled down and frowning a great big frown. The biggest goat of all backed up as the troll reached out hairy hands and charged right up at the troll. Up in the air flew the troll, and then down, splash, into the river the troll fell. The troll's horns pointed up and down and up as the river tumbled and turned and washed the troll right out of the green valley. All three trolls, the littlest, the bigger, and the biggest of all, romped over the bridge and ate the green, green grass in the valley. And they all got bigger and bigger. And if they didn't get smaller, they're getting bigger still. The end. So today I chose a rhyme about billy goats, and I hope you can do this with me, okay? Billy goat, as hungry as can be. He eats and eats and eats and eats everything he sees. You can eat the green grass, you can eat the leaves, but just make sure you don't eat me. All right, well, I hope you had fun with that. Maybe that's something you can practice. Now, our next story is about Babushka Olga and the enormous turnip. And this is a story that is told in many lands, many different ways. But the one I heard comes from Russia. It's about Babushka Olga and the enormous turnip. Now, Babushka means grandmother. And who knows what a turnip is? Do you guys know what a turnip is? Well, I do. A turnip is a vegetable that grows in the ground with most of it under the earth, and it's only its green leaves sticking out above. Once upon a time, long, long ago, Grandmother Olga planted a turnip. She was proud of her garden and proud of the vegetables that grew there, and the turnip looked to be of a considerable size. Do you know how big a turnip will get? Well, I don't, and neither did Babushka Olga. So she left it to grow in the ground, and the turnip got bigger and bigger and bigger. Soon it was big as both of her fists put together, and then it was as big as her head with her hat on, and finally it was as big as the wheelbarrow. Babushka Olga was very proud. "It is the biggest turnip I have ever heard of," she said. "I will have to pull it up now. Otherwise, it won't fit in the wheelbarrow to go to the market." She took hold of the turnip and pulled and pulled and pulled, but the turnip wouldn't pull out of the ground. Babushka frowned at the turnip. "Grandfather, come to the garden," she called. "Help me pull this turnip out." Now, do you know what Grandfather was doing? Well, I do. He was sitting in the house drinking tea. And when he came out to the garden and saw what was going on, Grandfather took hold of Grandmother, and Babushka Olga took hold of the turnip and pulled and pulled and pulled. But that turnip would not be pulled out of the ground. Grandfather frowned at the turnip. "Granddaughter, come to the garden," he called. "Help us pull this turnip out." Now, do you know what the granddaughter was doing? Well, I do. She was in the house washing dishes. And she came out to the garden and saw what was going on. Granddaughter took hold of grandfather, and grandfather took hold of grandmother, and Babushka Olga took hold of the turnip and pulled and pulled and pulled. But that turnip would not be pulled out of the ground. Granddaughter frowned at the turnip. "Little dog, come to the garden," she called. "Help us pull this turnip out." Now, do you know what the dog was doing? Well, I do. She was sleeping on the porch. After she came out to the garden, she sat down and scratched her ears. She was only a dog after all. But the dog took hold of granddaughter, and granddaughter took hold of grandfather, and grandfather took hold of grandmother, and Babushka Olga took hold of the turnip and pulled and pulled and pulled. But the turnip would not be pulled out of the ground. Do you think the turnip will ever come out? I don't know. The dog barked at the turnip, but that didn't do any good. It did wake up the cat, who was napping in the sun. Now, do you know what the cat was doing? Well, I do. She was dreaming of a bowl of milk. Cats don't usually come when they're called, but this looked interesting. Cat took hold of dog, dog took hold of granddaughter, granddaughter took hold of grandfather, grandfather took hold of grandmother, and Babushka Olga took hold of the turnip and pulled and pulled and pulled. But the turnip would not be pulled out of the ground. The cat sat and licked her paw, which is a cat's way of thinking. Then she went to the barn and came back with a mouse. Do you know what the mouse had been doing? Well, I do. The mouse had been nibbling at the grain stored in the barn. She saw at once what she needed to do. The mouse took hold of the cat held the dog held the granddaughter held the grandfather held grandmother, and Babushka Olga took hold of that turnip and pulled and pulled and pulled. The mouse, the cat, the dog, the granddaughter, the grandfather, and grandmother Olga pulling all together. And suddenly the turnip came up out of the ground in a shower of dirt. And Babushka Olga, she made a magnificent turnip soup, and everyone had as much as they wanted, except for the cat, who didn't want any. And do you know how the story ends? Well, I do. They lived happily together from that day to this. And the next year, Babushka Olga planted pumpkins. That was pretty smart of Babushka Olga to plant pumpkins instead of turnips again. Well, I hope you have had a very good time with story time today, and you can join in on Scott's song.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're now going to sing goodbye, and it's a lot like our hello song. It goes, goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. It's time to say goodbye. Thank you for joining us.